I can do better.
This meeting is being recorded.
Am I audible?
You're muted. I can wait. Okay, I can hear you. Continue.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Um,
Oh no, please don't mute your
present.
mic. I can't hear you. Hi Stella. Sorry, I can't hear you. I can't
So just
I can't hear you.
I'm changing to my phone.
Sorry? Okay.
My laptop is like
Okay.
Okay. I hope now. So sorry about that technology. So I hope you can hear me now, right? What has happened?
Can hear
I don't know if she has
you,
hanged or it's
but
my end.
I to you could mute your laptop. You could mute your laptop so they don't need to hear the sound. We can hear you. I don't know if everyone can hear Jen. Still,
Am I audible now? Can you hear me and can you see me? Can I just
yes,
get things? Okay.
I
Great.
can
So
clearly hear you and see you. Please go ahead.
okay. I think technology was having its moments. So happy new year to everybody. I hope you're all fine wherever you are and you're taking the year one day at a time. From my end, I am great. Thank you. So my name is Stella Waithera. Once again, I am the founder of African Tech Girl, an organization that aims to create a community as well for young individuals aged for young individuals from the ages of 7 years and above. So other than that, I currently work as a software engineer. I haven't practiced data science in a minute, but and currently I am more into software engineering and technical writing here and there. So that's what I currently do. So today we are going to talk about CVs. So since I'm a software engineer, I'm definitely not a career coach, neither am I an expert in CVs. I'm just going to share information that I have gained and I have researched on since I definitely had to prepare for this session. And we can just learn from each other. So yeah, I will share what I have and maybe you can also add on what you have. And even as we ask the questions, we can help each other out to figure CVs out because they need to be figured out. So one of the things that I have realized or I I know now is one of the thing is when you're writing your CV, have the recruiter in mind. So, in the beginning, I used to make the mistake of just thinking about myself when I am writing the CV. So the most important thing is for you to have the recruiter in mind. The recruiter is getting to know you as an individual through the CV, since that's the first contact they're probably having with you. So it's important that you make sure that what the recruiter sees or what the recruiter reads represents you. It might not represent, of course, each and every facet of you, but it gives them an idea of who you are as an individual and also professionally. So that would be the most important thing. So allow the CV to be an introduction of you. So have that audience in mind each and every time. So with that, when we are going, so mostly that will come in the summary section or where you, or professional section, however you call it, but mainly it's like the professional summary actually. So that will come in there. So there, talk about your experience, the experience, how you have worked, the industries you have worked in, what value you offered to your employees at a certain period of time. So basically, show your value, show where you have been, if I have been into sales, but it should also be reflective of the job that you want to apply to. Sometimes maybe the job you did in the past didn't fully align, or maybe you're just transitioning your career to a different career path. So maybe you might not have that much experience in the field that you, or in whatever you are applying for. So the most important thing you can do is make sure that you let the recruiter know that hey, I was actually a nurse, I'm transitioning into tech, or I was a nurse, I'm transitioning maybe to being a doctor or something like that. So let the recruiter or the person who will go through your CV have that information. So when we look at maybe the skills section, let me be right back because somebody is knocking at the door. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So when we look at the skills section, focus on your strength. The strengths that are mainly relevant towards the job that you're targeting. And maybe I can also just maybe double back on if maybe this is a job you're transitioning from one career to another. There are definitely some things which are transferable, and there are definitely some values which are transferable. If you're a leader, of course, you can be a leader in each and every skill or in each and every field. So you need to highlight that you have been in leadership before, you have been able to guide, you have been able to organize something for the organization, maybe in your previous task, and let them know that. But also now, if you're in tech, make sure that the skills that you showcasing are actually relevant to the job description. So the job description is where you should actually get an idea of what to add. So sometimes also, you have to put in mind that the recruiter or the HR person might not even be in the field that you're actually applying for. So if you're being told, if for example, they say, we want somebody who is good in Angular, which is a framework of Python, and maybe you have done Django, which is also a framework of Python. Maybe you can be there like, yeah, I have done Django, I have done, maybe you haven't even interacted yet with Angular, but you have interacted with Django. So maybe it's important that you make sure that even as you're representing those skills, that the person who is totally unfamiliar with whatever you're showing is able to understand, is able to get an idea of, yeah, this actually, this skill mirrors what we put in the job description, even if it's not exactly what they specifically said. Make sure that you point that out so that they can have an idea of, or they can have an understanding of that. Because sometimes you can just put in Django, but they're not familiar that it's also a Python framework, just as Angular. So maybe they will be like, they're not skilled for this job. But I know they're not the same thing, but they're in the same community in a way. So you need to explain that. Also, the JavaScript frameworks are so many. So maybe they're just asking for one of the JavaScript frameworks, and you have this other. You need to let them know that I have experience in a framework, a Python framework known as Angular, which is a family to maybe an Angular, which is a family of the Angular framework, or which is a family of the Python framework, which I mean Python, which is which also maybe Angular lies in the same way. In other words, I might not have the exact word right now, but in other words, make sure that whatever you're saying is representing you, and envision that the recruiter might not really know what you actually mean. So make sure that you articulate that well. So another important note is make sure that you highlight the value that you're bringing to your next employer. So this is done mostly by stating a high impact achievement or an aggregation of achievements throughout your career. So sometimes you can't go ahead, and I had this point, and it's also important, like, if you are applying for a senior position, maybe a senior, like a manager, or the senior engineer, sometimes maybe you have done so many internships before, or other positions. Sometimes you might not be able to reflect on all those jobs that you did then. So it's very important that you highlight the jobs or the things that you did that have impact. And this really, for me personally, it made me realize that in whichever role that I'm in, I need to make sure that I make an impact that I can be able to say it is mine. I read somewhere that being in a team, or somebody was just telling me that being in a team does not mean that you are productive or that you are important to the organization. You need to make yourself stand out. I struggle with that sometimes, especially as a woman in tech. Sometimes maybe when you're in a team, you find yourself hiding under other people. But it made me realize that I need to start making my own impact in my own way, bring in new ideas, and have those, maybe see if some of those ideas can be implemented. And when they're implemented, note that impact down for yourself, so that you can be able to highlight it, because it would also be weird to lie in a CV about an impact you had when you had no such impact. So it's very important that you highlight that impact and you work towards having impact in whichever area that you're in. Also, one thing I want to talk about maybe is what happens if, we don't have work experience. Maybe you're just from campus, or you are transitioning from one career to another. What happens? One of the best ways to get experience is volunteer roles. And these are usually positions that sometimes are very difficult to have, especially when you're starting off, because maybe you feel like, I need the money today, not even to be paid tomorrow. The end of the, I need to be paid today. And maybe that has not yet worked out for you. So it will be great that even when you're looking for another job, or you're looking for a paying job, to have a volunteer experience. And when you're in that volunteer experience, it's very important that you apply the high impact point that we made, that to make sure you create an impact that you can be able to highlight. Because volunteer experiences can really be recognized by outside efforts, and you just mentioning, hey, I volunteered in this, and they can be like, yeah, oh, you volunteered in that, I heard about that, and then be like, yeah, I actually did this and this, and maybe your idea is what made that experience to be known. So that can open doors for you that, you know, that can't be restricted by somebody else. So it's very important that even when you're in a volunteer position, you work towards having impact, and impact that can also help you. Because if you're giving somebody the time to work in their organization and they're not able to pay you financially at that moment, the least you can do is work in such a way that the benefits also benefits you. It's not just a letter, because sometimes you can find that when you're many people who are applying for a job, so many people have recommendation letters. So what sets you apart from the recommendation letter is, I started this initiative, it was so great, we were able to have this impact. Or through when in the volunteer position, we had this program, and I suggested we structure it in this way, and by us structuring like that, we were able to impact these people and these people. So serving in a diligent manner will also benefit you and give you that impact. Another thing, if you don't have, what happens if maybe I don't have those volunteer positions, and at the end of the day, we all need CVs. You should highlight the projects you did in campus. And this also goes to show that you have the responsibility to find or fish out opportunities that are available in your campus. Sometimes campus can be hectic, or maybe you have to raise your fees, or you have to you're doing a challenging course that is time consuming, but it is possible for you to find projects or things that you can do that maybe on a weekend they take 2 hours a day or 1 hour a day. Make use of that. It will go a long way for you. But also the reality is not okay. You can also have projects which you did with school, with your schoolmates and all that. But sometimes you might not be able to, or maybe you missed out on the opportunity of having such projects, or maybe your course did not have a project. So what can you do? Do extra projects for yourself. And even those who have projects, it's very important that you do project outside just what you have. Because if maybe a job has been shared to the whole graduate class that you graduated with, and you are maybe 80 students or 60 students or 50 students or even 30 students, and you all happen to apply for that job, you might find yourself that you're almost in the same group. So what would maybe help you to set you apart is that you went ahead and maybe did some personal projects on your own that just highlight more expertise for you and just give you more bonus points, basically. So I would like to talk about, okay, so far, is there anybody with a question before I move on to the next part? Maybe let me see if there's something I'd like to add on that. I wrote everything down. Anybody with a question? If there's none, I can just move on to whatever I would want to say next.
I have a question. On the part of skills, is it necessary to include things like, the hobbies, or is that a different session?
Okay, I hadn't yet got to that point, but it's usually advisable that you don't have hobbies and referees in your CV. Remember, you are introducing the recruiter to you as somebody who they can think of as a future employee. First of all, if they need referees from you, they would ask for you. They would ask for them. If they need to know your hobbies, they would ask for them, the same thing. So the most important thing is to make sure that you show your values as an employee, the type of person you are as an employee, and the skills that you have as an employee. Something else I would also want to highlight is, like I said, sometimes the person who is going through your CV might not be the person who might not even have an idea of what your career is about. They just know this is how much I'm supposed to pay this person. This is the overall job description. So they have no idea. And remember, they still haven't met you for an interview. So they're just getting a brief description or introduction of you in the job description. So make sure that when you're choosing the skills, maybe you can choose around 5 skills, and maybe you always relate them to the job description. And also, it's really don't assume the skills that you're putting in for every job. So what I mean with that is, sometimes, myself included, I used to have this behavior of, when somebody says they want my CV, I have a template on my Word document. I just download it and send it to them. I don't even go through it. I don't even customize the CV to fit the job description. I don't bother to see the skills that are there. I just, every job description had the same CV, or every job I applied to had the same CV. So it's very important that you make sure that the skills that you're showing are related or are curated for that specific job that you are applying for. Also, it's very important that the skills that you list use a similar or the exact language that is placed in the job description. Try and mirror the job description as possible. Don't copy paste the job description, but try and use the language that they have used to describe what they want from a person to describe yourself. So that somebody, if this is a HR who has no idea of what your career is about, because I assume that before every job interview, the HR quickly goes through what the job description was about and gets it, and then now maybe comes through and looks at your CV, and you're there, you're explaining what they need, but you're using words that are totally outside the job description. So you might just lose that job because of that. Sometimes maybe you just need to be clear and just concise and straight to the point, and try and maybe borrow some words that they have used on the job description as well. Also, when you're describing work experience, always make sure that past jobs use past tense to describe those particular jobs, while for anything that is current, you can just try and use present tense. So yeah. And also, don't ignore unpaid relevant experience. Sometimes maybe before you got the job, or when maybe you were in campus, you did some jobs and you have kind of forgotten them because you never got paid. So make sure that you just take your time when you're writing your CV, especially when you're creating it for a particular job, to highlight those jobs that are relevant to that particular job experience. So somebody asked which template to use. I think that is going to be your choice. The most important thing, which is something I was to talk about next, is make sure that you especially, let me first say what I wanted to say, and then I'll talk about the template. So first of all, it's important to note that there are 2 different types of CVs. There's what we call a modern CV and an ATS CV. So an ATS CV basically means applicant tracking software, or not an ATS CV, but ATS means applicant tracking software. So basically, this, when you're writing or when you're applying for this job, the first person to go through your CV is a software. It is not a human being. So one thing that I came to learn about this ATS CV is submit them when they are Word documents. don't submit them when they're PDF. Submit that specific when it's a Word, especially since it's gonna go through software. You know, for PDF, we do it so that the other person maybe cannot alter or something like that, or maybe by the time it's getting to them, it's not distorted. But for ATS, it's important that you submit it as a Word document. Also, know that that software has been made to highlight the keywords from your CV, and then if those keywords are found in your CV, to give you a pass or to give you an access to now maybe your CV landing to the HR, or maybe now having an opportunity to have a face-to-face interview, or maybe just the next level of the interview. So mostly ATS is normally required maybe for big international companies like Google, Microsoft, IBM, etc. So I have personally applied for those jobs over and over again. And I used to submit a PDF, and I never used to curate the CV to fit the job description. Like I said, I used to be that one person who just sends the same CV to each and every other job. So I did that. So now you have to make sure that for you to mostly pass through the ATS, you have to make sure that you use the job description to find the keywords. The keywords are inside the job description. The keywords that the software is going to use are inside the job description. Use them. You find proficient, somebody who's proficient in, you have to, or they usually say you have to be proficient in Angular. Blah, blah. If you're using, if you code using Angular, right? I am, or proficient in Angular. Try as much as possible to mirror the job description in your ATS CV, because it's a software which is going through it. It's not a human being, so that you can go through the next level. Also, something that you can do, basically I'm just highlighting things that you can do to bypass that software part, is don't have tables or infographics for ATS CV. Also believe the same thing for a modern CV. I don't see why you need to have a table and an infographic. Just explain that in words. Explain whatever you put it in words, in a short paragraph. Explain it. Also, one thing you should also note is avoid vertical lines or having so many horizontal lines. Keep your horizontal lines to the minimum if it is possible for you to have them, and avoid horizontal line. Also avoid italicized words and having word in bold. Don't have that. So for the ATS CV, your CV will kind of feel boring and plain to you, but that is the best thing you can have. So let it be plain. And okay, when you say plain and boring, it doesn't have all the colors. The software won't even note the color. So, so there's really no use in investing so much in that. But the main thing is make sure you have the keywords from the job description. That will help you to score well in the ATS CV, because the software goes ahead and grades your CV and then moves on to the second stage of the interview from that. So that is the ATS CV. So the other CV, that is the modern CV. This one is written for the HR. This one is for a human being like you and me. So it needs to be visually attractive. If you're using colors, use colors which are appealing, not too shouting. Don't mix so many colors in one CV. Let it just look good, let it be good and appealing for the person. I just want to look at it, but I don't want to be like I'm screaming in my head because of the first interview. So I think the most important thing, especially with choosing colors, maybe for those of us who because not everybody is meant for design, I believe that. So if you feel like I totally do not have the best eye when selecting color or when choosing the right design, maybe you can just have separate attempts and then forward it to different people, just to have an overall insight of what you can alter. And I think it's sometimes maybe we feel bad when you're criticized. You can work on something for 1 hour and someone like, no, not it. So it's just also a learning process for us to know how to receive criticism and to work on it. And also, like I said, try and send it to many people and try and send it to different genders. Okay, so that you can just have a different feel from different inputs. Also, you can try and have people maybe from different age groups so that you can have an overall look. Okay, so maybe sometimes maybe somebody who's totally old might not totally understand it, but also at the end of the day, something which is appealing, I think it's appealing because you don't know if your HR is gonna be slightly older than you. So you need to just have that point of view and implement as many changes as you can and changes that you feel that are appropriate. So for the modern CV, you can maybe divide it into columns, but don't make it very cluttered. So, and also something that was highlighted in this point is sometimes maybe some job description are like state your previous salary. We want to know how much you are getting paid now. So, and some don't even bother asking for that. So maybe you can have a CV that has a section where it just says current salary is this, and another one is just plain, just have it ready. And then of course, note tables for this. So with that being said, I would also like to just say about writing a CV is also something that you have to do in a strategic manner. So maybe sometimes we have seen people just go to the site and be like, I want a CV. And then you start doing it with this cyber guy. So I don't think there's anything bad with that. You might need some assistance, or maybe that person needs some assistance. But it's important that before you start like having or writing the CV, just first write down things that you would want to be reflected in the CV. So make sure at the end of the day, the CV you're writing in relation to a particular job description. So first know that, and then now get into it. Because sometimes you find somebody is actually even being asked by the person. So what did you do there? Do you remember? You're there trying to figure out. And then you're like, this area looks like this. Do you remember what you did here? Because you didn't first take the time, or maybe that particular person did not first take the time to understand how they want to be represented by the CV. So it's very important to think of where you're from, where you're going, and where you are and where you're going. So that is basically the career objective. So I think this will also come in the summary of the professional summary. The recruiter should see that, hey, this is where I have been, I have done this is where currently I am. Maybe if you're transitioning from one career to another, or you're now applying for a senior position and you have been a junior all along, say this is where I am and this is where I want to go. Let them see that vision in your head. Don't wait till when you maybe get an interview so that they can see your vision. They need to get a glimpse of your vision and your history and your currents from the CV. So also something that I did not think it was necessary is having a title that shows what you want, software engineer, HR. Don't just send a CV and it doesn't tell a story of the position that you want to be in. If you want to be maybe a team leader, it should kind of show that story. If you want to be a HR, it should kind of show that story. The same thing for software engineer. So the title should marry with the details that are inside the CV. So always remember that you're selling your value. sell it, and you're selling it to somebody else. So I kind of feel like now how I look at CVs is like you're meeting somebody new and you just want to tell them about you so that they can see your value. You're not waiting for them to ask the questions, you're delivering who you are so that they can fill in the blanks in their head. And then, so make sure you represent your achievements well. So this is in the achievements area. Break down the achievements in a way that it can be measured. Sometimes we write the job description of the previous job in the achievement section, but basically it should be what you are able to achieve or what you are able to do while you are in the organization. So this kind of goes back to the point about impact, like show the impact that you made while you were working for that organization. And I feel like, I don't know if this is something that I kind of underestimated, because sometimes maybe we think of when we get employed is somebody telling you this and this is what you're supposed to do. And then you do it. But we are maybe we kind of shy off from being the people who bring in ideas and suggest ideas or research on an idea and write a proposal on it, even when you're just when you're not just an employee, but when you a junior in a workplace, or maybe you don't have a position. So this is something that I think even with the 2022, it's definitely something I'm going to challenge myself. And I would also want to pass on the challenge to you. Let us learn to be people who seek out ways we can impact our jobs. I know sometimes maybe we overthink, or maybe we are just there. When we go to job, work, or a job, we mostly think about how maybe, or we get too involved maybe in forming relationships, that we forget that we are there professionally. It's good to have relationship, but it's also good to understand that if my job, if I'm able to, that you have the capability of what you could have done in 1 year, you can be able to do it in 6 months, so that you can push your career, not just even in that work environment, even in the future of whatever you're doing. And then, so also something else, when you're talking about impact, like I think I have really talked about, self, what you're doing on your own, but it's really important that you realize things that you do as a team do not count as impact. In the job, in the achievements, you don't start by saying, we developed this project, or we initiated this project that was this. No, it's good. Okay, so when I was in high school, just to deviate a little bit, my mom would always tell me, you came here alone, you live alone. So I think that just goes to show that, so even when I'm in these jobs, I have to think of how I drive the impact, so that I can be able to describe that. So I do this and this. I was able to bring in this project. I was able to help organize this event, where you were able to serve all these people, where we were able to serve dignitaries, where we were able to hold a conference for 5 days in a different country, where we were able to impact this number of kids, this number of adults, these software engineers, these employees. I was able to create a program that helps the employees to become motivated. If you're a HR, or I was able to create a program or a system where we were able to track how employees are delivering in their tasks. So you being in a team is not your job. It is good you're in a team, but you have our own responsibility as an individual. I would like to talk about presentation, and then maybe I'll take some questions, and maybe the checklist that you should have when you're doing the CV, and then maybe you can take in questions from there. So presentation, ensure that the font that you're using is common throughout. don't mix up the fonts. Don't have a different font for a heading and a different one for the details or even the points. Let all of them be just the same font. If it's a heading, maybe you can increase the size of that particular heading. And then make use of white space. I did not know this point. To be honest, for the better part of my career so far, I had a CV which was 1.5 pages until I saw somebody and they're like, you can't have a CV have a half a page which is empty, has nothing in it. Either make it 1 or make it 2. So either it becomes 2 full pages or 1 full page. Don't leave white spaces, no white spaces anywhere. So if you're having white space, either you have irrelevant information or you need to put in relevant information. So either of the two. And then the other point was leaving out hobbies and referees. It's a professional relationship. Nobody needs to know your hobbies yet. If they do, they will ask you. If they need the referees, they will ask you for them. Also because I came to realize, sometimes maybe especially when you're starting off our careers, your referee is your dean, your referee is the COD, your referee is the lead lecturer, or maybe that lecturer that you liked their unit. What if they don't remember you and all of a sudden you place their name and they're being called, hey, so this is this company, and this company we are calling to ask you about a particular individual by the name of, and they're like, who, wrong number, and you place them as a referee. So I think it's important that, because sometimes even I know somebody's like, oh, let me ask that particular individual if I can add them as a referee. And when you ask them, they say yes, but they forgot you. People forget things. We even forget our car keys, so, or even our house keys. So what about a whole human being who is not even related to you? That person might forget. So for that reason, lay off on the referees first. If they ask for it, reach out to that particular individual and be like, hey, I'm going to add you as a referee. I have applied for this position, so they might reach out to you, and then give out the information. So that information is fresh to that person. Also, something else, maybe when you applied for that job was a month ago. Maybe between that 1 month, you have met this amazing person. Yeah, they have even volunteered to be your mentor. You're working greatly together, even the project you have done, because anything great can happen at any moment. So maybe you have even done something great within a matter of weeks. You have understood each other. They have seen your character as a leader. They have seen your character as somebody who serves. They have seen your character as somebody in a position of working hard. Maybe that reflection was not seen before by somebody who you had earlier placed. Maybe they have never seen your work ethic the way that person has currently seen your work ethic. So you might miss somebody who has experienced you in such a way, be able to explain that to somebody else by placing somebody who maybe experienced you as a student. Maybe even they experienced you while you were broke, of which being broke is not a bad thing. It happens to everybody. So maybe they just experienced you in a time when situations made you become misrepresented, because sometimes we go through things and they make us to become misrepresented to somebody else. So maybe they might, yes, say you're a good person, but they might not add, let me call it the sauce that this other person can add because they have interacted with you in that capacity. So lay off on the referees. So something else also, an organization can also specify, because organizations which specify that they need a referee, that's totally different, but some don't. So if they don't, leave it out. If they do, add in. And for you to add in, make sure you just reach out to them first and let them know. Okay, and then typography errors. So if if your CV, and I struggle with wording as well. So if your CV, maybe you're placing the comma in the wrong place, the full stop in the wrong place, you have missed a full stop in your email address. When you're listing your email address at the top, you accidentally put in a full stop, and maybe when they're looking for you or they want to send you an email through that email address, they're putting it with a full stop or something, or maybe a space, and it doesn't seem to come to you. So always make sure that you check on your typography. And for me, I am not the best person when I am a technical writer, yes, but to be honest, I struggle with typography, like that wording thing, commas. I struggle with commas. Where am I placing the comma? Where am I not? I think I need to do. So what I do, I reach out to a friend of mine who is great at all that. And I'm like, hey, please go through this and go through it carefully and give me feedback. So you need to not only find people who can support you and give you honest opinions, find those people. And the only way you can find those people is by trying out people. Sometimes you send somebody a CV and they're like, it's great. Somebody else, you send them a CV or send them something and they give you detailed corrections. So you just go on learning. Also, if I send this person anything, they can be able to go through it and correct me. If I send this person this, they just be like, it's great. So you need to know how to differentiate who is in your corner and in what way. They're not a bad person. They're just maybe not as attentive, or maybe they're in the same boat as you in. So you need somebody in a different mind space or in a different boat. So something else, maybe when you're writing, your font size should maybe not be less than 10 points or 10 px, however you're going to say it. Should not be beneath that size. So yeah, I think one thing that you should, maybe I can just highlight the checklist, and then I can take the questions. So checklist is basically some of the things that I feel like you need to make sure that you have those things in your CV. So your full name is pronounced well. I mean, it's written well, since pronunciation cannot be seen, it's written well. Your phone number, also something else to the phone number, just have an alternative phone number. So what I mean by an alternative phone number, it's not your numbers which are in your same phone, that in case that phone gets lost, both the phone number that you gave and the alternative, both of them go missing. You can get somebody or somebody's number who you're normally close with or who's normally around you, who can forward you that information in case something happens. So you can just make sure you highlight this is the alternative number and this is the phone number. If you have two phones, share that alternative. And then email address, ensure you have a great email address. I bet all of you know by now that your email address should basically reflect your name in a way. Sometimes it'll be, my name is Stella, I'm there writing Stella 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes the employer can just get bored with that. So maybe try and have like, since I'm Stella Waithera, I can have like Stella Waithera at gmail.com. If you find that name, it would maybe stellawaithera.sw@gmail.com. Let your email address reflect your professionalism. Also, when you writing your email address, note the punctuation, note where there's an at, note where there's a full stop. Like I said, avoid maybe placing a full stop after the email address, because there's a high possibility that maybe the person or the recruiter who will be sending you maybe a feedback email will just copy paste the email. So if you put a full stop at the end of that email, it might go with the email and they may not really be attentive because they're responding to many people. So just make sure it's easier for them. So also something else, you can add an email address with the link for mail to, where if they click on it, it automatically allows them to send that email to mail to, blah, blah, blah. Another thing is highlight your location, highlight where you're from. So if these are just some of the questions that maybe the employers, so where is this person from? Is this, maybe some people don't even know that the name you have, are you residing in Uganda? Are you residing in Kenya? Are you residing in Burundi? Because at the end of the day, people travel. So let your location be highlighted. And also remember to have a title. The title is basically what the position, software engineer, HR. So make sure that that title, like I said, is well represented by the CV. The CV tells the story of you as an individual who is occupying that specific position that you have highlighted. So the summary section, maybe you should just make sure that it tells you and your values. It tells what you have done. It shows your expertise. I highlighted that before. And then have relevant work experience. Start with the most recent. Sometimes maybe when you're applying for a senior developer, or which mostly they say that's like a job. Some people, depending on maybe how they're able to acquire the skills, apply for these jobs maybe when they're 5 years into the industry. So maybe sometimes they have done some internships in between there, they have done some freelance, they have done some multiple positions. It's just good for the CV at the moment. Just write the most recent experience and get that down. Note that down. The rest, they can figure it out with you on your LinkedIn, or when they interview you, unless it's a job that is relevant to that particular job. So that should not be missed out. So, but I don't think there's a need of you having each and every job you have ever done, maybe even from 10 years ago. It's not relevant at that point. And then, so make sure you just let the CV show what you have accomplished. You can group those accomplishments together and also highlight where you accomplished those accomplishments. So I don't think I have anything else to add. So maybe we can just open up the floor for the discussion and for the questions. Yeah. Is it okay? Okay, let me just read this question. Is it okay to omit a job you did that you're not proud of or could possibly jeopardize the application? Yes, don't add that, because at the end of the day, you're selling yourself. If we are meeting for the first time and you're telling me about yourself, you won't probably tell me about maybe you failed relationships, or you failed relationships fall under friendships and all that. So you won't probably say that. So let us first hold on that and just focus on your achievements. You're selling yourself as the best candidate, but yeah, I think you're selling yourself as the best candidate. However, if they happen to maybe have come across it on maybe LinkedIn, and they ask you, so what happened in this job and this job? Don't badmouth the company. Just stick to saying maybe you are not able to, or I wanted a different job, or I just wanted to pursue, or maybe you can even say that I wanted to pursue something. Maybe I had some, I was pursuing a short course that needed my attention, or I was doing a project that made me have to just, so like, no offense, but just take the blame. Take one for the team. Don't badmouth the company, since you must have gained something, even a lesson that you do not like. It's not that bad. Is there a preferred template by employers? I would not have the appropriate answer for that, but I believe the template does not sell you. How you describe yourself, how you write the CV sells you. There's somebody will have the best templates and have no content. So I think it's like, it goes the same way if somebody who was, or maybe somebody who has performed very well in school and has no skills or the relevant skills for that job, and somebody who has maybe even is a high school dropout and has those skills. I would definitely go for the high school dropout. No offense. I'd rather maybe make them, I don't know. I feel like sometimes what you have is greater than who you try to be, or because that's more of appearance, because they're trying to figure you out in a deeper way. So yeah, so I think what you have in the content is more better. I might not have the clear template, but like I said, let's the CV be one page if it's one page, not 1.5, 2 pages if it is 2 pages, not 2.5. Make use of the white spaces. Nowadays, there are so many CV templates, so you can look into that and just tap on one that fits your information. Because you might have great experiences that actually match up to the job, and somebody might telling you, use this template, and maybe that template really can't suit in your experiences and the values that you can add to the company. So what is important is to find a way to represent them well. So it's a lot. I feel like maybe we underestimate how much CV is a lot of trial and error, and the time that you need to dedicate to before you get the CV that will actually work. And I think that's why actually people go to the extent of paying career coaches to help them out with their CVs. So yeah, I feel like if you maybe don't have the finances, research. Online has so many great opportunities, so make use of that opportunity with platforms like Joanne, the career coach, Angie Obwaka. So with such platforms, you can just sacrifice some money. Like Joanne currently has a workshop that she's charging 3,000 bob. I actually had to enroll for that workshop because I need help. So, and this was a sacrifice for me. So it's just sometimes you just have to sacrifice to gain something. So go ahead and sacrifice maybe some fries for a month, or some going out for that month until you just get it. And once you're done with it, you're done. So, and also attend this workshop. There's so many workshops right now that like this one, and so many that even on Eventbrite that they talk about CVs. So don't underestimate what you can gain for those workshops if you don't have the resource. Not all of us can afford something like that. So just reach out. Joanne normally has lives and all that. Go and look out to her resources. She has LinkedIn, she has YouTube, she has TikTok. So you can make advantage of those resources that she's able to put out for free, and they can take you a step further. So it's just all about how you make use of the resources that you have. Looks like there's no other question.
Okay, let me just ask this. Is there a difference between a resume and a CV? Because in some applications, they tell you that send in your CV, the other one send in your resume. Is there a difference?
For me, to be honest, I never really take it as there's a difference in that. I just usually assume it's the same thing. I don't know if I'm correct or wrong about that. I usually just say resume and CVs are the same thing, because I think the goal is still the same. The recruiter wants to know about you, and they want to know the value you can bring in the job according to the job description that they have given and according to what you can offer. So I believe you can do that. Also, yeah, one thing before I forget. So maybe if they say CV and resume, I think it's just similar. Both, they mean the same thing. So when you're submitting that document, rename it with your name. So for example, of course, I'm Stella Waithera, so it will be Stella Waithera CV or Stella Waithera resume. So make sure that you rename it to fit your name, so that, because you can imagine if you're receiving over 100 people applying for a job, and they all write CV, 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 and maybe that person just goes in and first downloads all of them, so that he can just go through all of them. So, and maybe puts them in a folder and just goes through all of them. So it's, if it's CV, 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 maybe once they're impressed with your CV and your name stuck in their mind, or they wrote it down somewhere, it would be easier for them to find it if you just name it Stella Waithera CV, so that they can be able to just track it and quickly maybe share it with other people who can make the decision to help you be part of that position. So yeah, also I would like to talk to all of you. You know, we are all in the same generation, I believe so. Maybe I'm older than some of you or younger, doesn't matter. You know, we live in a time where we want instant gratification. We want to be recognized today. We got in today, we want to be recognized, we want to be the top performing, we want to be the most skilled, we want to have a raise within the first month, or by 3 months, they better give me a raise. So first of all, research on the company you're applying for. I failed an interview once because, yes, I remember when I was applying for the job, I looked up what the company was about. And then when it got to the interview, which was like some weeks later, they asked me this question. They're like, which company have you applied to? I said the name. Which position did you apply to? I said the name. And then they were like, what does our company do? So they were doing so many things. They were doing software development, they were doing data analytics, they were doing insurance. I did not remember. They were developing insurance software. I could not remember what exactly it was, because they're doing so many things under one. So I can't just say you're developing software or you analyze business insights, because it was like everything was under one umbrella. So I believe that was one of the things that made me lose the job. So one trick that I saw somebody put up on like TikTok. Okay, I'm not on TikTok, but it was just a video they posted on Instagram. It was during the job interview, like a few minutes to the job interview, go back to the job description, note down the main points that they want, and note down the points that you can offer. Okay, maybe you can put it as a sticky note, stick that on your laptop. Higher. Go now to the company's website. Look, what does this company do? Just write that down on that sticky note. These are the services that the company offers, and put that on a sticky note on your laptop. And then go to the interview. So those can be something that, because if I applied for the job like some weeks before and I was not able to prepare myself like that, you can only imagine, or maybe not, you can imagine how many people maybe made that mistake. So maybe you just doing something as small as that, even if you might not have all the skill set, because I believe I had the skill set, I just did not have that vital information in my mind, and of which I remember I went through that company website right before the interview, but I forgot during the interview. So sometimes yes, you can be like, yeah, I've forgotten that, but it's just easier to just maybe write that down, so that you don't, maybe because you're being asked so many things, you're having, sometimes remember in that particular interview, they're even asking me questions about what I did in campus. So by the time I'm remembering all that, I've even forgotten what I looked at a few minutes into the interview, because like I said, the company was providing so many services. So you can just maybe write that down, so that even maybe as you're dealing maybe the anxiety of being interviewed, you can be able to maybe answer such simple questions which are important. Another thing I have noticed is get interviewed for as many companies as possible. You get to learn and acquire some tricks on how to be comfortable in an interview. Don't do one interview a month, do several. And I also say, sometimes even when you're employed, okay, sometimes you may not have the time, But if you're employed, just throw yourself a little bit in the interview world and just learn how to, or refine how to be asked questions for something that you might want, so that if ever you leave that job or you lose that job, you are not too raw that even as much as you have experience, somebody who has no experience, because they have been looking for jobs and they have been interviewed right, left, and center, they have confidence you don't have anymore. So it's just important to do that. And also, don't, of course, use company time to be interviewed. So when they ask you, are you available for this time? Try and find a time that maybe even a time that you can get interviewed, maybe during your off days or something like that. So it's something which is possible. So another thing I realized is there was this time I had this interview and I felt sick. Not because of the interview, but I just felt really sick. And it's just good to communicate and be like, hey, I am not feeling well. You can maybe the person, because of course one person in the team is the person you're in contact with, just be like, hey, can I talk to you right before the meeting for like 5 minutes? Or yeah, and then you'll be like, hey, I am feeling really bad, I'm feeling unwell, maybe under strong medication, I cannot be able to handle this interview. See how they handle even their employees, because some companies will like, they will maybe toss you aside. You just know that company was not it, because if they can't handle you being sick even on the day of the interview, what happens when you do the job and you have deadlines to meet and you fall sick? So yeah, and also research on questions you can ask. You can ask like on, I usually, one thing, since I'm a software developer, I research on asking questions like, hey, do you provide hardware support? Because sometimes maybe that company, you're supposed to bring on your own machine, your own laptop. If your own laptop fails, does that mean that I'm a bad person or I become poor at the job? So do you provide me that support that even if I don't have my laptop, that in case my laptop fails, you can easily help me or support me to, maybe if it's the battery which is dead, you can help me buy that. If it is the laptop which has crashed and it has completely died, we can figure out a way, because there are some companies which you will be using your laptop for the work, and when your laptop crashes, there is no support. They don't want to commit to helping you buy a laptop, and then you can figure out the payments. Even, some companies can tell you, okay, just take the laptop, and then we can figure out maybe a certain percentage of your salary as a way to repay. Some don't even want that. So you need to figure out that. And also you need to know that some companies are not, their work policy, it might not align with your values, and you might not get the job, and it's okay to be rejected. In life, you have to be rejected. We are billions of people in this world. Not everybody will accept you. The same thing with the companies. Not every job will accept you. Even some, they will accept you today, and after a month, they're like, I don't think you are the best suit for this job, and then they let you go. It's okay. It's part of life. So always, I believe with getting interviewed many times, you will learn how to handle rejection, because of course the no's are usually more than the yeses. So especially when you're starting off your career. So it's good to get interviewed a lot so that you can handle those no's. Because sometimes, imagine you can get a no in the last round of the interview. That time you have been doing an interview for like a whole month. So it's important for you to build that endurance. And the only way you can do that is going through the experience so that you can gain it. Because sometimes even it's just the job, it's not even you, it's them. It's not you. Sometimes it's not you. So there's a question here. For companies with 2 or 3 rounds of interview, what are some of the typical questions for the first round of interviews for software development? So sometimes they're usually just, apart from data structures and algorithms, sometimes some will give you a task to do, a project to do, based on a particular language that they highlighted. So excuse me. So there's that. There's also the data structures. There are also some who ask you just some questions around software engineering. There's somebody was asking me about name the different software. What was it even? Like I remember where we have the the software, I think, iteration processes or the development processes, something like that. So it just depends. It's different. It's different for different companies. Yeah, and others have the IQ test. So it's just different. And the only way you can just know how to maneuver them is through getting interviewed, because getting interviewed and applying for those jobs is just part of practice, and practice makes perfect. And eventually you will learn something great. When you see people like Dr. Bright, for those who don't know him, I don't know, if the people who don't know him is in cybersecurity, one of the things he keeps saying is that it's even because he acquired his PhD quite early in his life, it got to a point where he had to remove the PhDs and maybe he had to downgrade himself to get a job, because he applied for so many jobs before he got a job. And right now he's employed, he has a consultancy, he does speaking conferences. So sometimes also your time will come, but also in the process you might go through a tough time as your time comes to prepare you. So now I believe that's why he has a passion of helping so many youths get into cybersecurity or get into the tech space, because he understands that or he values the process that he went through, and it has humbled him, which is a very humble guy. So if you're into cybersecurity and you don't know Dr. Bright, so reach out to him and know more about him. So yeah, I think we are almost at the end, and there's no question. So if I would just like to maybe say, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Stella Waithera. You can also follow my organization, African Tech Girl, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And we can meet on those trips. And you're also creating a community. So join, also letting your teenage brothers, sisters, cousins join. We're helping them with schoolwork, programming, because as most of you know, that when we were in school, we became very frustrated when we couldn't understand math, and you were like, I am never doing math again. I'm never doing science again. I'm never doing biology, chemistry again. We are trying to help the young generation using technology to understand those concepts and have long-term goals into STEM, so that we can have more Africans in STEM and more women in STEM as well. So yeah, I think that's the end of the session for my end. Over to you, Esther.
Thank you so much, Stella. That was really an amazing talk, and personally learned a lot. I was actually reviewing my CV while you were talking, and I'm like, wow, maybe this is why I did not get some jobs I applied. So thank you so much. And everyone was attended the session. I'll currently fill up a form that I've sent in the chat just to review how the session was and how we can improve sessions for you. And one more thing to mention, someone asked a question about how to handle a tech interview. We are Shikod Africa, Nairobi. We are going to have a session on that, probably at the end of this month or early February. So just add your email. The form will send you an info on when that meeting will be exactly.